Christopher Columbus as hero. General officers that have the appearance of impropriety. The EU giving Ethiopia money after a conflict that the EU stated they did not want to fund. All this and more on the Worldview. My name is Chris Greco. You're here for the Worldview. For the next 30 minutes, we'll be talking about different areas of the world, how that impacts the United States, and how the United States impacts the world. And I think it's pretty important to state right up front that some of these areas are not going to be, they're going to be relatively provocative, evocative, however you want to phrase it. And there's going to be some controversy. So I just want to lay that out right here. So if you have a situation where you have a hard time hearing another side of the story, whether it be political, geographic, or whatever, then I urge you, just don't worry about the video. But if you want to hear some facts and if you want to gain a perspective on different areas, then by all means, please view and comment. Just understand that the comments are reviewed before they're released. So a lot of people like to comment because they like to kind of cause a stir. Well, guess what? You can't cause a stir on this because I will be reviewing all comments. And of course, if it's something that is reasonably, it's reasonable by the situation as it is to be able to publish the comment, of course I'll publish the comment. But if it contains words or phrases or there's a deep animosity there, then I probably will not publish it. Just wanted to let you know right offhand, be very transparent on this thing. It's not that I'm just going to publish all good comments, and I want to make sure that that's very well known. That I will post comments that are against me or against the program or whatever. But what I will not publish are words or phrases that just are hurtful. And it just doesn't make any sense to do that. And I wish they would provide that on all social media so that people could review comments before they release them on Facebook or whatever else. Yes, everyone talks about this freedom of speech thing. And I agree, there's a freedom of speech area here. But when you take personal attacks onto people, it's not good. It's never good. And it just is not worth it. If you have something to say to me and you don't want to publish it as a comment, there's the email is right there, candr@statisticssleuth.com. You can certainly reach me there. So without further ado, let's talk about some of these subjects. But I think that the main thing I want to talk about today, since Columbus Day is right around the corner, is Columbus, Christopher Columbus. And I think it's really important to understand something about this guy. First of all, I think the man was a hero. And a lot of people will definitely not agree with that. And I get that. I understand. But this, Christopher Columbus was an absolute, he was the astronaut of his time. And a lot of people, they have problems with that. They say, no, he was on the Earth. The Earth, as we know it now, didn't exist back then from the standpoint of cartography or any type of mapping or anything else. And now, Christopher Columbus to me is a hero, and here's why. He went off in search of basically a shorter route rather than going all the way around Cape of Good Hope and everything else to try to get to India from Europe. He wanted to find a shorter way to get to India. And at this point in time, now understand, this point in time, there's no map of North America or South America. Nobody knew they even existed at that point in time. So it was really a difficult situation for him to go and do what he needed to do, but he did it. And that's, and I realize a lot of people sit there and say, well, yeah, he did it, but he got lost in the process. So why should we have him as a hero? All right. So here's what I want to say about people that state that. First of all, there's two types of things, and I've heard this in the past. You guys can look it up and tell me if I'm right or not. But there's like thing called nescience and ignorance. Nescience are things that you don't know that you wouldn't normally know. And then ignorance is things you don't know that you should know. So I'm going to treat individuals that call him a loser and call him a man who got lost and whatever else as people that don't understand the world as it was in 1492. I don't understand the world as it was. Nobody understands the world as it was in 1492. Now, a lot of people sit back and they go, oh, you know, we have writings and whatever else. I get all that, but nobody lived there. Nobody lived there that is alive today. Not one person on this earth was there in 1492. Let me make that very clear. And there was no video, there was no social media, there was nothing to be able to record this stuff other than good writing. That's it. Writing. No videos, nothing else. So at this point, Christopher Columbus took off from Portugal. Now, just to give you an idea, and I think this is really important to understand, is to understand the distance between the two areas we're talking about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this up on the screen, and we're going to take a look at Google Earth, because I think this is really important to understand the distances involved and everything else that went on there. And I think it's also very important to understand the different challenges that existed at that point in time. And I think that that's pretty important also. So let's take a look at, first of all, he left from Portugal. So he left from Portugal here, and then he made his way across to the West Indies. Now, the West Indies, we talk about it, but let's just pick an island, right? Let's pick an island here. So we're gonna talk about islands. Oh, let's say let's talk the Bahamas. Let's just state the West Indies were actually over here, but let's just state that the Bahamas, right? And take a look at this and say, you know, what's the distance involved when we talk about these areas, right? Excuse me. So basically, when you have this, you know, and you have the West Indies, you know, basically, it says, it's funny. It says West Indies is a crescent-shaped group of islands separating the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea to the west and south, right? So we sit back and we go, okay, so the West Indies basically were this area right in here. So this was the West Indies, all this area, and here. Okay, so so we're just going to make a quick trip here. Go in here. Now, I'm just going to go right across here like that. So basically, we're talking about 4,161 miles. 4,161 miles. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about that area. Now, whether it was here or wherever he landed, you know, whatever. Bottom line is that this is what we're talking about. And it was funny because he thought, that's why he called it the West Indies. He thought it was in India, but he wasn't. Now, a lot of people sit back and they go, oh, you know, Chris, it's, you know, he got lost. Look, he just kind of headed west and whatever else. Couple of things we have to remember at this point in time. One is that longitude for navigation on the seas did not exist. So I think that is very, very important. Longitude for navigation on the seas did not exist. All you had was latitudes. Now, for those that need a refresher on longitude and latitude and all the other things that go along with that, let me see if it actually gives me the longitude and latitude. It might. So you have, there we go, show navigation. Sorry. Oh, shoot. Oh, grid. Here we go. There we go. So this is what we have. We have a longitude and latitudes. Here's the latitudes here. They go east to west, right? That's the line, actually. The lines actually go north to south. I mean, each line encircles the Earth, and then one north. So that's why it's west 70, west 50, west north 30. So north, because everything above the equator is called north. Everything below the equator is called south. Now, so what did he have to do? So he had this follow a certain latitude, and then he didn't have longitude. He did not have the ability for north south. He didn't have the ability to pinpoint his location. All he had to do, because all they could do was sight the sun, do a reading on that on the zenith of the sun or stars, and they could find the latitude. Latitude is relatively straightforward to find. Longitude, you have to have time, because longitude is based on time. Well, there was no way to do that in 1492 because they didn't have, first of all, they didn't have a timepiece that that was sturdy enough or accurate enough or whatever else to be able to go between Portugal and on the seas, salt water and everything else, and those types of issues, all the way to the West Indies. So what happened is that he had to find this latitude, then the next latitude, then the next latitude, then the next latitude, then the next latitude, so just going, west. He just had to go west, just to keep going west. And that's when he found land. So he didn't even think he would find land. They were saying he would go off the edge of the earth. They were saying it was a lot of things, a lot of legend that was, flat earth theory and all that stuff, that basically was going to happen. He would not be able to go across this big, gigantic ocean. You got to remember, everybody was centered around here, in the med and everything else. So they understood things from waypoints being the ability to sight things. You can't sight anything out here except water. So that's where the situation happened, and that's why he is a hero, is because he set off on a journey that basically he must have felt at one point in time that was going to end up in his death. So he went all the way to the West Indies by virtue of these latitudes, not longitude. Now, people ask me, they go, when was longitude finally used for navigation? Well, that's an issue, because the book, the longitude is called literally Longitude by Deva Sobel. I've read this book cover to cover. It is absolutely amazing. It is the most amazing story I've ever read from the standpoint of true stories. It is just amazing. Deva Sobel, she is a very, very good writer. So I would highly recommend you get this book and read it. And that will solve some of the problems we have with people calling Columbus, a fool and a person that just got lost. So let me take a quick trip forward, right? And say, okay, and everybody, and I'm not saying everybody, there are people that would like to call Columbus an individual that basically robbed indigenous peoples and did this and did that and did whatever. Well, let's talk about that for a second. So what we're doing right now is we're trying to send people to Mars, right? So let's talk about this. So why are we going to Mars? Why are we going to Mars? Let's say that. Why are we going to Mars, right? And a lot of people sit back and they go, oh, we're going to Mars so that we can expand our population and we can find places to live and whatever else. Ladies and gentlemen, that's called colonization. We are colonizing Mars. Let me make this very clear, and this is gonna upset some people. We are colonizing Mars. So don't talk to me about colonialism, and don't talk to me about Christopher Columbus being this, this person that just destroyed indigenous peoples and whatever else. They wanted to be able to explore new worlds and new lands. Christopher Columbus did that. What are we doing right now? We are not discovering. We are going out and going to explore, and we've already done it through unmanned other planets. And it's interesting to note A lot of people say, "Oh, there's no life. There's no life on Mars," or if there is, it's going to be a little small, blah blah blah, whatever else. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the same argument that they made when they started doing these voyages to other places in the world, is that there was no life there. When Columbus landed on the West Indies, his philosophy and assumption was that there was no other life other than what existed in Europe. That was it. There was no other life on the earth other than what existed in civilized Europe. So they had no idea that there were actually going to be people where they came off. They knew that there might be plants, there might be botany type aspects and all that, but certainly they had no idea there would be living beings. So we are going to Mars to colonize Mars. Now you can sit back and you can give me all the double talk you want about colonization, but that is what we are doing. We are going to colonize Mars. So I want this to be very clear. Here we are. First Native American woman to travel to space. You know where she's going? She's going to Artemis, and they're going to go to the moon. They're using the moon as an area to be able to go to Mars. They're using the moon as an area to be able to stage to be able to get to Mars because it takes less gravity. It's better for ion type aspects and everything else. So this is a Native American who's going to travel to space, and she will I can almost guarantee it. She is going to be, or someone is going to be, as a Native American is going to be on that first on that first Mars flight. So here's an individual who's a Native American. It's funny because the whole idea behind busting on Columbus was that he came in and he just basically destroyed indigenous peoples. Well, the bottom line is this, is that we weren't around in 1492. We don't understand that philosophy. Now, we can read all we want, but we still don't understand that philosophy as what it is. And you can have all the historians and philosophers and everyone else shove it at you. But the bottom line is we weren't around. And when the Mars people, when they land on Mars, and there turns out to be living things on Mars, and then we start collecting it and we start exhibiting it and we start dissecting it and we start doing anything and everything possible to be able to understand it. All of a sudden, 300 years from that time, when that finally happens, people are going to be condemning the Mars missions because they're going to say, geez, that was colonialism. Look what happened. Look at the situation. Not the fact that we're trying to discover new worlds and we're trying to do whatever we need to do. No, it is that we destroyed something. And I hate to say it, but every time the human being tries to study something, they change it. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Every time a human being tries to study something, no matter how unobtrusive they try to be, they change that. So Columbus changed the world by going there. He took a big risk by doing that, what he did. The same as these astronauts are getting on this aircraft and going to Mars, or going to the moon for that matter, or going anywhere out in space. And everyone sits there and says, oh, well, he got lost. Well, let's take a look at the Mars thing. So everyone sits back and goes, oh, we're not going to get lost going to Mars. Really, that's interesting because there may be something out there, especially when it comes to human interaction with space, going that far, that we will come in contact with it anew, and all of a sudden it'll be, no matter how much we were prepared for it, it's going to hit us right smack dab in the face with cold water. So don't judge people that you don't know, that you don't understand, and you don't understand their history, and you don't understand what they've done. Because to me, that is absolute and positively, that's ignorance, because it's things that you should know that you don't know. So please make sure that you understand that Columbus Day is very important. And interestingly enough, the whole reason for Columbus Day, and the reason that the one day out of the entire year is given to Americans of Italian descent is because of an issue back in the 1800s that happened as a result of several Italians being hung without a trial. Even though they were pronounced as not guilty, they were still hung. And the president at that time was so concerned that to appease the Americans of Italian descent, decided to make Columbus Day. And, that is It's something that you need to understand, and thing that it's something that's very, very important. Okay, so this is it's scary, right? And it's something that Columbus Day was done in Argentina in 1917, right? So it's it's interesting to note that President Harrison, right? So interesting, and this is really interesting. So President Harrison, um, who was interesting enough, um, he decided to make Columbus Day because of what they call an anti-Italian motivated lynching of 11 Americans. This is from whitehouse.gov, folks. This isn't me. Of 11 Italian Americans in New Orleans in 1891. So this is what, and it's interesting because Harrison, and I think it's really interesting, because William Henry Harrison was responsible. William Henry Harrison was responsible. He was a ninth president. We're talking about Benjamin Harrison. So it's a little bit of difference aspect on that, and that's something that you have to understand. So because Henry Harrison was, I think, the ninth president, and Benjamin Harrison was 23rd president. So I don't want you to mix those up. William Henry Harrison was responsible for some battles with Indians, whereas Benjamin Harrison was later on 23rd president. So this is interesting, and I'm going to tell you. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you this reference, just so people don't think that I'm somehow, trying to mess you over, or trying to have some type of, this is it right here. So Proclamation of Columbus Day 2022, and you sit back and it talks about the history of it, and you can see for yourself. So this is what we're talking about when we're talking about Columbus Day. And I think that is something that you have to understand, and that's something you got to put in your memory. Enough with this renaming holidays away from the heroes onto aspects about culture. This is a hero. Christopher Columbus was a real, honest to goodness, living hero. He took the risks. He did the things that need to be done to be able to explore basically a new world. That's what they called it, a new world. So call it Columbus Day because it's worthwhile. It's not that you are somehow diluting, the ability, diluting the reason this man existed. And they call him a psychotic, call him all the other things. Of course they do. The man's not alive to defend himself, number one. Number two is the historians are going to have certain opinions when it comes to this individual based on writings or otherwise. But the bottom line is this. He took a trip that he had no idea from the standpoint of what he would find. If anything, he took they had no idea at that point in time that this thing went to the West Indies. He could have literally just gone and died on open ocean. He had no idea North America, South America, or otherwise. So this is something we have to take into consideration. And I'm sorry for taking this much of the show up, but this is Columbus Day, and this is my heritage. This is my family's heritage. It's something that I cherish from the standpoint of a day, one day, that my father and grandfather and great-grandfather and everybody else, that I look to them and say, congratulations on being the Christopher Columbus was part of that deal. So let's get that straight. Last couple of minutes, I'd like to cover some other areas. First of all, general officers are making more and more and more opinions from the standpoint of Ukraine. We ought to go into, we ought to give more money to Ukraine. We ought to do this for Ukraine. You ought to do this for Ukraine. Well, I started to look up these generals' names. They need to do a vetting on media. And this is where media, and I'm talking right wing, left wing, doesn't make any difference. They got these generals on, and somehow or other they think they put a 4-star general on, and that really that does it. I'm going to tell you right now, I've been looking at some of these guys' background, and I've been looking at where they went after they retired. And let me tell you where they went. They went to military contracting. Who makes the most out of this situation in Ukraine? Let me make things very clear here. The number one entity that makes a ton of money from this situation in Ukraine are the military contractors of the United States. That's who makes the money. So, and who? I'm talking about places like URS. So URS awarded Defense Systems contract $3 billion with subcontracting. One of the generals belongs to that. What about this one? Predstar, right? Or Predstar, whatever it's called. They make synthetic aperture radars, right? And there's your United States Air Force generals that are part of that. I mean, these are military contractors, and the reason that they're there is because they make money. You know, I'm sorry, but we talk about Christopher Columbus. Yeah, he made money off the deal. I mean, off of this whole situation. But these generals are making money off of military contractors. They have what they call an appearance of impropriety. They're going on media and they're saying, give more money to Ukraine, give more money to Ukraine. They need to back away from that and get off and say, look, I got to recuse myself because I belong to a military contractor. And because I do, that military contractor may benefit from me saying, go ahead and give more money to Ukraine. Go ahead and give more arms to Ukraine. Go ahead and give whatever to Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine already has brought in a UK military contractor who also does business in the United States. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. So enough on that. UN votes. UN votes to give money, 650 billion euros to Ethiopia. Now let's talk about Ethiopia just for a second here, and let's move in. Let's move into here. Talking about Ethiopia, right? So Ethiopia is over on the east side of Africa, and what we're going to do is we're going to just go right in here. Now watch. This is Ethiopia has a region called the Tigray region. And the Tigray region has been in an absolute problems. They've had so they've had a lot of problems, especially in Mekelle, right here. This is Eritrea here. Well, up in this area, the Tigray region, they've been trying to get independence. And because of that, Eritrea did that a way long time ago in the 70s, but these people have been trying to do it, and the Ethiopians went in and basically tried to put down this revolt, whatever you want to call it. And they caused a lot of issues, they caused a lot of damage, they caused a lot of deaths, whatever it is. And the UN is now giving them money to be able to recover from that situation. So that is Ethiopia in a nutshell. Kenya. So let's just stay. Let's just stay on Google Earth Pro for a second. So let's go to Kenya. Kenya is here again on the east side. They want to provide peacekeeping to Haiti. So where's Haiti? Well, here's Kenya, right? And here's Haiti. Haiti is all the way over here. This brings us almost all the way back to, interestingly enough, brings us back to the situation in, here's Haiti here, to the West Indies. So I think that's just really interesting. It goes all the way around in a big, gigantic circle. But Kenya wants to provide, they want to provide it to Haiti. So the UN is saying, okay, go ahead, you can do that. Now they're going to have to provide them some money, some funds, whatever else to go in there and try to break up these gangs that are having a heck of a time trying to do this. So it'll be interesting to see how that all works and what happens as a result of that. So this is the UN aspect. So that's what that is. And so I wanted to come back one more time to Christopher Columbus before we leave. And that is that if he would not have found the different areas that he found, we would not have been able to put a foothold in basically the continent. So I think that is very important, and that's something that needs to be considered. So happy Columbus Day. Happy Columbus Day. And I wanted to say thank you very much for watching, and understand that the worldview, when you take a perspective like this, it sometimes is controversial. And I don't apologize for that. It's just the way things are. I wanted to make sure that everyone understood a little bit more about Columbus and about what he did and how important it was, and that he was, in fact, a hero. Until next time, this is Chris Greco saying, always, always, always have a worldview.